Okay, just got back from Rogue One, so first of all, spoilers. I think I'm going to spoil things. I was very pleasantly surprised, actually. It was much better than I thought it would be, and I think it was quite possibly the best movie you could have had given that concept. Whether the concept was the best concept in the world is... That's something I have questions about. Let me back up a minute maybe and talk about the whole concept of these Star Wars expanded universe movies, standalone movies. When Disney announced that they'd be releasing every other year just kind of a standalone Star Wars movie to explore the larger universe, I think I had the same reaction most people did, which was like, yeah, why not? I'd see that. Because, like, why not? I mean, if they're making them, we'll go see them. And, like, it's this whole galaxy that's just waiting to be explored. Like, who knows how many millions of potential stories you can find exploring various aspects of this whole galaxy they've created. And then they started announcing what these movies would actually be. Rogue One, which was a prequel, and then the Han Solo prequel, which they're working on now, and then I think the third one was announced at one point. It would be a Boba Fett prequel. I'm not sure if they're still doing it. I haven't heard anything about that lately, but it's all prequels, and I hate prequels. I think they're unnecessary. Like, if you've told your story well in the first place, you don't need a prequel to go back and fill in these gaps. And also all the other problems with prequels, you know, there's no suspense because you already know what the ending is going to be. They kind of tie the continuity up in all sorts of knots and create all these kind of problems if you're enough of a nerd to be concerned about that kind of thing. And it's just, it kills the forward momentum of the franchise. Like, and Star Wars particularly has had this problem over the last decade with all these prequels and prequel TV series they've been releasing. Like, we should be kind of moving forward in time. Instead, we just kind of keep going back and back and back. So that's one issue, is I don't like the concept of prequels. The other issue I have with the concept, like, when they first announced this, they'd be doing a bunch of movies to explore the Star Wars universe, it sounded really cool because, like, it is a whole galaxy. But the thing is, like, actually it's not, because Star Wars is not capable of telling 1,000 different stories, even though they have a whole galaxy to explore. Star Trek can do this fairly well. They can go into a new planet and they can have kind of whatever kind of story they want to have come from that planet. I know the last 3 Star Trek movies have been very repetitive, but the TV show, at least, made good use of all the possibilities. Star Wars can't do that. Star Wars has one story. It's people fighting stormtroopers. And they're just kind of so nailed into that formula that they can't really tell any other stories. And because there's a timeline here between the beginning of the Empire and the end of the Empire, they're kind of constrained by that timeline, which I think is why they have to go back and do prequels. They can't have like a new movie set like in, well, I can't say now, but like in what would be the new era of Star Wars. And I also suspect like they didn't want to do anything new because they wanted to save that for the new movie trilogy they've got coming out. Now, that being said, like, of all the prequel ideas that have been announced, this particular one, the idea of a bunch of kind of rogues kind of going in and stealing the Death Star plans, that did sound actually like it had the most potential to be good of any of the prequel ideas. So I was kind of cautiously optimistic, and I also knew Disney had been throwing a lot of time and money behind this, so like it wouldn't be bad. It would be competently done. And it was great. you know, again, given all the limitations of the concept, they made the best possible movie they could have possibly made with that concept. The atmosphere was great. You know, when they the kind of dirty, sandy, grimy kind of atmosphere that was kind of like established in the first Star Wars movie on Tatooine. They've brought that back even more so. I think the atmosphere is even better maybe than the original 1977 Star Wars. It was, you know, more gritty. And you know, like that scene in the rain where like you could just see the rain dripping off everyone's faces. That atmosphere was just so cool. The characters were really cool. Most of them. Especially the two lead ones. The girl Jyn Erso and what was that guy's name? Captain Cassian? He was really cool. Like they just looked really cool. And I'm sad that they died at the end of the movie because I would have quite happily watched them in more stuff. They were just really cool characters. Like the actors were cool. They looked cool. That wardrobe was cool. You know, the little mustache that guy had. It was just he was a class act. I could watch that guy all day. So, like, I'm sorry they had to kill them off, but, like, I'm not surprised because, like, what else are they going to do with them? Like, for one thing, the rebel spies have to kind of be sacrificed getting these plans, and otherwise, again, the problem with prequels, to leave them alive would have created all kind of continuity errors, problems later down the line, because then you'd be like, okay, well, what were these guys doing during A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back? How come we don't hear from them again? And the fight scenes were really cool. Like there was the X-Wing kind of space fight scenes were, I think, better. They were definitely better than The Force Awakens, possibly the best we've seen in a long time. Except the one minor complaint I have about that actually is for those space fight scenes, there was no kind of character you cared about. They were all just kind of, you know, they had faces, but they were all just kind of there to get blown up. But it was cool. Again, all these Star Wars movies are limited by their formula. The stormtroopers essentially just exist to get beat up. And they're just kind of so terrible. And they get beat up every which way. Like, they can't hit anything. I guess it's a question of degree, because stormtroopers in a Star Wars movie always exist to get killed easily. That's their kind of sole function. But sometimes I think you can push that a little bit too far, and you can say, okay, now this is just getting ridiculous. Like that, I don't remember anybody's names from this movie, but that one guy, the big guy who had that, kind of machine gun, laser gun, he just kind of mow down row after row of stormtroopers. And you're like, all right, yeah, this is getting a little bit silly. Or that the blind guy seemed to take them out just a little bit too easily. If you push that too far, then I think as the audience you can't help just being reminded that this is a little bit of ridiculous conceit, like that actually these are supposed to be humans under these masks, and you're just kind of being trained by this movie to just kind of think of them as just kind of fodder that exists to be killed for the sake of being killed. But again, that's a problem not with this specific movie, that's with the whole conceit of Star Wars. Which actually, one more thing on that note, this movie kind of teased out the beginnings, the origins of the Death Star. It didn't blow up a planet yet, and obviously the reasons that they couldn't blow up a planet in this movie were for continuity reasons. In the original Star Wars, it's made very clear that this is the first time they're testing out its planet destroying capabilities. So they just have it blow up cities instead of whole planets. Like, that's their cheat. And I think it works well enough, although I don't know. I think in the original Star Wars, like the rebels are unaware that the Death Star is armed and operational, right? Isn't there that line where he says, "Oh no, maybe that's Return of the Jedi." Okay, give that one a pass. I think that works well enough. But like, as the incredible destructive force of this Death Star is being tried out, and the rebels are kind of faced with this power to kind of destroy a whole city at one go. I don't think this is just me. I think you can't help but think of nuclear weapons and think like maybe this is supposed to be an analogy to nuclear weapons, or if it's not supposed to be there, it's there nonetheless. And where this, where the politics of Star Wars gets a little bit murky is, the stormtroopers and the Empire kind of represent the Nazis, and we represent the rebels, or we're supposed to be the good guys. And I know it's always been a confused political analogy, but that's in the mix somewhere. We were actually the one with the nuclear weapons. Like, we, America, were the ones who obliterated cities in Japan, the only nation in history to actually use nuclear weapons on a civilian population. And I thought I don't know. That's not the story that they were interested in telling, but I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to make a story where the good guys had the complete weapon of mass destruction? And, like, throw some moral ambiguity in there. Like the other side could still be complete evil. They could still be like the stormtroopers and the Empire and the space Nazis. But the good guys are the ones who have the power to kind of completely blow up planets or obliterate cities. And then, what do you do with that then? Like, do you kind of blow up a whole city to win the war or something like that? That's obviously, none of that moral ambiguity would ever fit within a Star Wars frame. Well, maybe they could push it. They do seem to kind of push the envelope occasionally on what they can get away with, huh? But like, yeah, it's obviously a little bit too easy when the bad guys have the ultimate weapon of mass destruction, and then there's just no more ambiguity at all. You just have to kill all the bad guys to kind of save the universe. So those were things that went on in the back of my mind while I watched the movie, and those really are critiques maybe of the larger Star Wars framework, and not of this particular movie. This particular movie, even though it totally did not need to exist, given that they decided to make it, and given the framework in which it had to exist, and given the story it had decided to tell, was excellent. Hit all the marks. The actors were awesome. The action scenes were really cool. The space action scenes were really cool. The dialogue did what it needed to do. Atmosphere was really cool. Yeah, I think I go so far to give it 10 out of 10 stars, because when you judge a movie, you have to judge it based on what it set out to do. You can't say, well, this is a stupid movie and they should never have made it. You have to say, okay, given that they did make this movie, how well did they do at setting out what they set out to do? And I think it was great for what it was. So 10 out of 10 stars.